Good morning, Joy Nook Book Club. Welcome back for another Saturday with us. Y'all, y'all, let me tell you something. I know, and I'm not going to be extra. I'm going to try my best not to be extra. But today we have Carrie Cotten in the house, Dream Walker author. Let me tell you something. When you see the cover, and I'm gonna just show the, not gonna say what I normally say, which is, y'all know I'm all about a cover, okay? I am all about a cover, front and back. Let me tell you something. Faith, mercy, grace. The action that is placed in this book, it with the foundation of faith, mercy, and grace. The pains, the journeys, the actions, the fights, everything that happens in this book today stems from a place of faith, mercy, and grace. Understand something about your life, that yes, you're going to go through times where you feel confused, you feel frustrated, you feel like you don't belong. Like, do I really belong here? But guess what? God does not make mistakes. Over time, you will find out faith, mercy, and grace has got you through those times where you felt that out of placeness, where you felt like, you know what, you questioned everything about what it is about you. But again, God makes no mistakes. And if you surrender to the will of God, and everyone comes to that. I tell y'all about my journey all the time, that it took Allenia a while. And it doesn't mean that I don't love Jesus. I mean, I am a PK kid. I understand it. I know about it. My mama, I got the prayingest mama. She'll pray for you looking at you. She'll pray for you when she's not looking at you. But I had to come to that place on my own so that I could form the relationship that I needed to get me through. This is what this is all about. It's an action, y'all. Action from the first chapter, action packed journey of faith, mercy, and grace. If you look over your life, you will probably find that your life has been action packed, but your foundation, faith, mercy, and grace has sustained you through some times where when you look at it, you're like, my God, how? How, Lord, did I get through this? How, Lord, did I survive? How, Lord, did I keep my peace? How, Lord, did I keep my stand? But you did. Because you know what? Like I said in the beginning, God does not make mistakes in what journey you have to go through. Y'all, before I even begin to get into this bio for today, because I'm excited. I am excited. Y'all, the conversation that we had before we even got started was good, okay? Y'all know y'all girl got chills right when she's talking. Y'all already know how I am. My chills means this is going to be a good one. It's going to be a real good one. But before we get started, I wanted to introduce our sponsor for today, which is the Joy Nook Network. And they are introducing this month a book tour, a virtual book tour for a conversation with your big sister. The Slow No Strategy, written by yours truly, Allenia Renee. That book tour will start May 27th, and we will be on different podcasts. The actual book tour agenda will be put out there. So make sure if you've purchased your book, you come on ask questions. You'll have time. We'll do a read along. Oh my goodness, we're going to have some giveaways. Oh, we're going to be doing all kinds of good, juicy bits and things as we go along for the month of June. So look out for that virtual tour schedule hitting your Facebook page and Instagram pages in the next 3 days. I'm telling y'all, I am so excited. So excited. So let me get into Carrie Cotten's bio. Carrie is a lifelong writer, exploring her passion for creative storytelling from a young age. She grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and attended East Texas Baptist University in Marshall, Texas, where she earned a BA in English. Y'all, that's right. She's a good writer. Trust and believe when you read this, you're going to be like, oh, she did the thing. She did the thing, y'all. She did the thing. Trust me. Okay. She currently lives with her husband and 4 children in the Appalachian mountain town of Grassy Creek, North Carolina, y'all. Okay. Grass, lots of land, animals. Okay. Farm land. Girlfriend is out there. Okay. When she's not writing or homeschooling, you can find her enjoying the fresh air and sunshine on the family farm. Carrie loves to write emotionally charged and gripping fiction, but above all, she seeks to glorify God with her words and always point her readers towards Jesus. And let me tell y'all something. This right here is going to have you on your seat, your feet. You're going to be walking around with the book going, no, I know, y'all, I'm telling you. I was sitting up there shaking my head like, no, girl, fight. Okay. That's what I was doing. I'm telling you, this is some good action. But the foundation is faith, mercy, and grace. So it's with great honor and pleasure that I drop the mic to our guest author for today, Carrie Cotten.
Thank you so much. This has just been super fun so far. So I'm going to read a selection from Dreamwalker, and I'm actually going to start kind of later in the book in chapter 18. So I'll give you just a little catch up of where we're at. So the story is about a young woman named Andromeda Stone who was raised with very free-spirited nomadic parents. They subscribe to this kind of do what feels right mentality. You're free to be me, free to be you kind of lifestyle. And Andromeda never really felt like she fit into that. She always felt like there was something more for her. And that was only really one reason why she never really felt like she fit in. The other was that for as long as she could remember, Andromeda Stone could go to sleep and she could visit people in their dreams. And she could talk to them there. So through a series of events, she finds herself as sort of an interrogator for a super secret government agency known as the Agency. Her latest mission goes south, and she is on the run from both her target and her former employer, the Agency. So we're catching up with her on the houseboat of a kindly old man named Jubal Jones, who has agreed to help her. And also helping her is another agent who had been in charge of her security detail, Will Carter. And he's trying to keep her safe despite Andy's intention on getting herself into trouble. So we pick up with them after a couple of days. She's not been sleeping. She is sort of really declining in her state. She's very stressed. And she's just convinced if they can get to this little town that she knows of, this really secluded little town where there's no electricity and no telephones and no connection to the outside world, she just is convinced that if she can get there, then everything would be okay. So I'm going to read chapter 18, and we're on the houseboat. So here we go. I sat across from a quiet Jubal Jones, a plate of eggs and bacon in front of each of us. I had brought Will his food to eat as he navigated. Jubal's elbows were on either side of his plate and his hands clasped in front of him. Mind if I give thanks? He asked. Not at all, I smiled. He bowed his head and spoke sincere words of gratitude. I closed my eyes and let his thankful words speak for my own grateful heart. Despite the circumstances, I reflected on how lucky I had been. Dr. Vora covered for me for some reason, placing the suspicion on Nadine Grayson, who, according to Will, had disappeared with Choclos. That's the bad guy. I prayed that Charlotte had stayed hidden. I forced myself not to think about what they could be doing and they could be hurting. I thought instead about the security cameras being disabled by the power surge, Will finding me and agreeing to help, Jubal's houseboat being in just the right place, not to mention the incredible fact that he was willing to help a fugitive. Was I considered a fugitive yet? Will assured me I was still a missing asset and not under suspicion, but I wondered if he was just trying to protect me. Lord, please protect these young people in their journey. Amen. After he finished his prayer, Jubal ate silently, letting me get lost in my thoughts. Is it just luck? Could it be more? I'd never known much of religion. My parents did never speak of God. They were good people who tried to be peaceful, but didn't practice any particular faith. That was another thing that made me feel like I didn't belong. I always felt as though there was something more. I would look at the orderly way in which life would occur, the consistency of the changing seasons, the birth, growth, and eventual death of all living things, providing the way for the next cycle to begin. It was so designed. It gave me comfort to think that something or someone was in charge, even if bad things happened, that we weren't just alone here and everything wasn't just up to chance. I had always found myself praying. I just didn't know to whom. I wondered if it was the same God that Jubal gave thanks to now. I thought back to the picture of Marie Jones, her silver lion pin, and how seeing it sparked something inside of me. Mr. Jones, Jubal, would it be okay if I asked you something about Mrs. Jones? I felt a little nervous. We were completely dependent on him at the moment, and I was risking upsetting him, possibly causing him to kick us off the boat. He looked at me as he finished chewing the bite he had just taken. I waited, my hands tightly together in my lap. That'd be all right, I reckon. I was relieved and relaxed a little. I wasn't snooping, but earlier your door opened when the boat rocked and her picture fell over. I hope it's okay that I put it in the drawer. I thank you. I keep forgetting to put that picture up in the mornings. Can't tell you how many times I've had to get new glass. Well, she looks so kind. I know you must miss her terribly. I'm sorry if talking about her causes you pain. He sat back in his chair, now finished with his breakfast, and looked out his window. The sun was still to the east of us, bright beams streaming in through the glass. He was sitting in the middle of a single ray, which seemed to be wrapped around him on all sides. Tiny little dust particles floated around in the air, sparkling as they reflected the sun's light. I won't say it don't hurt when I remember she's gone, he said, still looking out over the water. But I don't mind talking about my Marie. The way he said her name, my Marie, it made me feel his crushing heartbreak, his joy in remembering decades of happiness, and his incredible loneliness all at once. I had to take a deep breath and blink away the sting of tears. I cleared my throat before speaking, hoping my voice wouldn't give away my internal struggle. I didn't want to make it harder on him than it already was. Would you tell me about her? I asked. He locked his hands behind his head and closed his eyes. A smile spread across his face, which was glowing in the sunlight. Oh, so much to tell, he said. He kept his eyes closed as he talked. We were younger than you when we met. She was just a girl. Oh, but what a girl. She was smart. Smarter than me, that's for sure. Never scared of nothing either. I remember the first time I seen her, standing on top of the cliffs at Redmond Lake. He opened his eyes to look at me, but didn't move from his relaxed position. They weren't real cliffs, mind you. That's just what we'd taken to calling them. But it was high. Only the fellas brave enough to jump from there were the guys from the upper grades at the high school. He closed his eyes again and continued. There she stood, arms out to the side like she was going to fly. And fly she did. She jumped right off that ledge, and I knew I'd seen something special when she popped up out of those muddy waters, laughing like she just heard the funniest joke of her life. Was that here in Virginia? I asked, causing him to open his eyes again. 'Twas, yonder west a ways. Her family had moved to our little town the spring before. I'd been working at the timber mill since finishing my middle school, and she was going on to the upper grades. She was going to be a nurse, you see. She sounds like a real spitfire, I said, smiling. Oh, was she ever. You never seen nothing like my Marie, he chuckled. When I joined up with the Army, she joined too. Those were the hard years, being separated for so long. She finished her schooling and went over with the medics. Oh, I was so proud of that girl, but scared to death at the same time. I told you she wasn't scared of nothing. I about deserted my post to snatch her up after I heard she'd run in with the troops to a village, saving a whole school full of little uns. One of them babies ended up being a pretty important fellow, you know. Led a revolution, and for his part, about changed history. Wow, I said, speechless. Yeah, we weren't back but a week before she said she was done with danger, and we marched right down to the church and had that preacher marry us on the spot. Boy, was her daddy mad. He laughed at a memory I couldn't share, but that lit up his sparkly gray eyes. We'd have been married 60 years come fall. The cancer took her 5 years ago. She weren't scared of that either. Just like jumping off the cliff, she said, and landing in heaven. She said she'd never been more ready to meet the Lord. I didn't know what to say. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, both staring out of the window at the silvery ripples of the Potomac reflecting the sun. I wanted to ask about the pen and figured this might be my only chance. From what he told me and Marie, she would have approved of taking a risk. Can I ask you about the pin she wore in her picture? The lion? I said softly. Oh, yeah, that was something special. Family heirloom of sorts. When she came back from overseas, her mama had sat her down and told her some old family legend of the Lionheart women. Said she'd come from royalty somewhere back in the ages and they were blessed with special calling. Her mama gave her that pin, and I can't remember a day when Marie wasn't wearing it. She made me promise not to lose it, made me promise to keep it. She said I'd know what to do with it. I thought about giving it back to her family, but her mama and daddy had passed on. I slipped my hand up under my hair, feeling my own little lion, which was hot to the touch, and I quickly pulled my hand back. Did she have any siblings? I asked. An older sister, Esther, he said, and then added as an afterthought, and I lost track of her. I think she moved to Arlington, last I heard, working at a church there. Thank you for sharing that with me, I said. He nodded with a smile. You remind me of her, he said to my surprise. She had red hair like you when she was a girl. I felt my hand reach up and touch my hair. I had noticed in the picture that her eyes were the same shade of blue as mine. There's something else, too, he said. I wasn't sure he was talking to me, even though he was looking at me, his head cocked to the side. I better go check on young Will. He started to take his plate, and I reached out for it. I'll get these. Go ahead. Thank you again. He looked me over one more time and turned, walking slowly back to the helm room. Jubal had guessed it would take us about 12 hours to reach our destination. Will and I enjoyed the day, taking turns driving the boat under the careful instruction of our new friend. We sat on the back deck in the sunshine and later made a quick dinner of fried catfish and potatoes. In the ease of the day, I'd almost forgotten our troubles. Jubal and Will had decided it would be best to stop at dark and continue our journey in the morning. Most boats didn't travel at night, and we were more likely to be stopped by the river patrol. I was surprised to find that Jubal knew almost everyone along the river, so it was easy for him to find a secluded place for us to dock for the night. Will and I stayed out of sight while he went ashore and talked to his friend, who traded him 30 gallons of gas for several pounds of fresh-caught river catfish. Sitting at the table with him and Will as they laughed over one of Jubal's many childhood stories reminded me of those coveted evenings with my friends, the Hawthorns. I wondered if Thomas and Mary had ever finished closing in their garage for Quinn, their oldest child. I thought of Susan and Tabitha, their twin 6-year-olds, and how they would giggle when Quinn talked about his girlfriend. They would be 8 now. I wondered if I would ever see them again, and if after all this, they would even want to see me again. I looked around the table and felt a strange connection to the two men. What a crew we made. The gaunt, ghost-like girl with the sad eyes, the handsome hero, and the wise old man with a broken heart. What chance did we stand against our odds? Somewhere out there was a man in so much pain that he hated the world and everyone in it. He had within him the power to make a person carry out his will without saying a word, and I had something he wanted very much. If he could somehow acquire my abilities, he wouldn't even need to be in their presence. He could simply manipulate dreams and make anyone do anything he wanted. I had woken this demon from his unconscious prison because of my fear and desire for self-preservation. I didn't know to what lengths he would go to find me and take what he wanted. I did know he drew his power from electricity, and I thought if we could just get to the strange little community in Virginia that I'd heard of so long ago, maybe it would buy me some time to figure out a better plan. I prayed it was still there. If you're there, God, if it's luck, if it's you, whatever it is, I sure hope it stays with us. Andy, Will said softly, touching my hand, you with us? I shook off the heavy thoughts of what lay ahead and smiled at my hopeful companions. Yeah, I smiled, taking a deep breath. Sorry. 2 sets of concerned eyes stared at me. I wanted to join them in their laughter, I really did, and I enjoyed seeing them so happy. Despite the connection, I was observing them from the outside. I felt a flash of heat across my face and suddenly felt like I was suffocating. I think I need some air. Do you mind if I step outside? I said, surprising them by standing quickly. Not at all, Jubal smiled graciously. Young Will and I have kitchen duty, don't we? Will took his cue and said lightheartedly, That we do, sir. I left them gathering the few plates from the table and hurried out of the door to the back deck. The night air hit me like a wall of ice and cooled my burning cheeks. I made my way up the steep metal stairs to the rooftop deck. I stood with my hands on the rails, letting the cool night breeze wrap around me. I felt goosebumps form on my bare arms and regretted not grabbing my sweatshirt. I closed my eyes, listening to the soft lapping of the river water against the side of Jubal's boat. I was tired. In truth, I had slept hardly at all. Every time I drifted off, I felt that same terrifying presence, not quite reaching me, but so very close. I knew what it was, or rather who it was. I wasn't sure until Will had revealed just that morning that he had escaped. It was Devani Toklos. He was looking for me. In our shared dreamscape, he had kissed me, creating a cold and painful connection. I'd felt a sickening pull from him. I had felt it all 3 times I'd encountered him, just barely at first, and then stronger and stronger. He had been testing his powers. He was fueled by rage, and me by fear. We had both grown stronger, but when we met last, he had taken a part of me. He had a little of my ability now, and he was searching for me. He hadn't perfected his new gift just yet, and I hoped he wasn't seeking out anyone else. I needed to keep his focus on me, but I knew that meant the chance that he would eventually find me. When we fought last, he had let me win in order to be free. I doubted my ability to do the same if we faced off again. I desperately wanted to sleep, but was dreading it at the same time. I was so lost in my worries that I didn't hear Will come up behind me. I jumped as he placed a hand on either side of mine on the rail, his chest to my back. It's okay, it's just me, he said, leaning over my shoulder, his face next to mine. You're shivering. I hadn't realized it, but I had been shaking, chilled from the quickly dropping temperature of the night air. His nearness brought a wonderfully comforting heat, and I drank it in. We stood in silence. I could have stayed there forever. I felt safe, secured between his arms. His breath was hot on my neck, his face so close to mine. I let his strength be enough for both of us. I knew it wasn't fair to ask so much of him, but I did it anyway. I leaned my head into his and felt him turn towards me, his lips soft on my forehead. How are you so calm? I asked. What do you mean? You're so sure everything's going to be okay, and I'm just a worried mess all the time. Faith, I guess, he said softly. I know God has a plan. Could that really be true? I wanted it to be. Maybe Will was part of the plan that would stomp the monster that I was becoming. I needed to tell him about Toklos, what he was doing, what was waiting for me. I needed him to start planning for when I was lost to the darkness. I knew it was coming. I needed him to know what he would have to do to keep me from becoming the thing I couldn't even name. Not tonight, though. Tonight, I simply let him be my anchor.
Oh my goodness, Carrie. Y'all, let me tell you something. The beginning of the book, I'm telling you, is action, but that thing does not let you sit and rest because each chapter you're wanting to know more. But this is a great segue because I loved how how she said, not tonight. So her worrying, y'all, was like, you know what? I am worried. I'm concerned. And we all have that. But Carrie, you said, tonight, I simply let him be my anchor. And you did such a thing again towards the end when, well, I ain't going to tell it. I'm not going to tell him. I'm not going to tell him. I'm going to tell him. But I'm telling y'all, this is some good writing because when she said, I was just like, that was it. She said that again, but it's interesting how you came. I want to know, how did you come up with these characters and how they were going to interact with each other? And let's start with Andy first. Who was your muse and how did she develop? How did she develop?
Well, I get asked that a lot. How'd you come up with this? I think that there's a lot of stuff that goes on up in this crazy brain. And this was just one of those thoughts. And actually, the first scene that I envisioned was later. It's chapter 26, which is like the chapter.
The chapter, yes.
Chocolate morning, you will need a comfort item.
Yes, yes, because you're like, oh my goodness, oh no.
Yeah, you're like, and then you're like, So I think that is that chapter and the very first chapter were like the little scenes that played out in my mind like a movie. That's how I see things very visually. And so somewhere between those two scenes came the rest of the story. But Andy, I guess I really liked the idea of just kind of a regular girl who never asked for any of this to happen, does extraordinary things, but still she stays herself through the whole thing. She's not like, I'm this great warrior and all this. She doesn't ever really know why she has those things, and she's just lost. Right. And she's just a person who has gone through her life thinking there's got to be more. Something is missing. And she's just felt this calling her whole life, something calling her name. And of course, that thing is God is calling her. He's like, you're mine and you belong with me. And she doesn't, like, she just has this hole, that God-shaped hole that we always talk about, is she's got that. And it's sort of her journey to discovering that. And she started off without any, she never knew. Nobody ever told her. But throughout her life, God places people to reveal bits of himself to her so that she can finally figure it out and realize that he's choosing her throughout the whole thing.
Yes.
So
you did a wonderful job. And then Will.
Oh,
because he was like in the, like right there from the beginning, from the beginning of her waking up out of that first initial interaction with Taklos.
Yeah.
Not knowing, but that first interaction, and she wakes up and this handsome man there, y'all. Oh, God. So where did Will come from? Like who did you pick his characteristics from? Because he was a very protective spirit from the beginning when she woke up and she kind of felt off balance and had to catch herself. He was there. Yeah.
Well, that's easy. He's my husband.
Y'all better watch out. She ain't playing. That's what I'm talking about, Carrie.
That's why I know him so well. He's got that dark hair and those brown eyes, and he's steady. He's solid. Now, Will has a lot more words than my husband does. And it's kind of fun being able to write the script
Right, right.
Like, how come you didn't say that? Because Will
Right.
said that. Yeah.
Right.
And he's
Right.
like, he's fictional and I'm real.
I'm real.
But he has that, just that solid personality that he is, he is dependable and he's not perfect.
Right, right.
But he's good. He's faithful.
Yes.
He's solid, and he's loyal. He's loyal. And he wants to do the right thing. And that is so my husband. So just kind of calm. And I'm like, woo, here we go.
You're fire, right? But you have to. You have to have that balance.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have that balance.
Yeah. So that's where he came from.
But no, that's good because she is fire. Did you find a little bit? Did you put a little bit of you inside of that Andy character, or are you someone else?
No, I'm a lot Andy. I'm very impulsive.
Gotcha.
Shocker. I'm extremely emotional.
Gotcha.
And the intensity of how she feels about things is hide it pretty well, but that's me on the inside. I'm like,
gotcha. Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of Andy. Now she is way more like tough and she handles stuff better. And she's actually probably less impulsive than I am.
She's that small bit of your alter ego.
She's like a better version of me.
There you go. No,
I also don't walk in dreams. So
right. And that was another question that I had. So what made you pick this ability for that character to have? Because that right there, because some people would have been like, well, that's demonic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a struggle. That was a big struggle. And we had talked about this before, but when I first started writing this book, I didn't even have the faith element in it at all because I thought I can't write this story. I was just going to write a story. I was just going to write. I was going to be clean. I was going to put a bunch of curse words or stuff in it. And, but I just thought I couldn't write a story about faith that had these supernatural elements.
Right.
But then I really tried. And I couldn't write that story either. So I thought of an ability that was believable.
Right.
I guess is what I'm trying to say. I mean, it's not really believable, but it's not like she could fly.
Right.
And it wasn't kind of witchcrafty. She wasn't like casting spells or anything.
Right.
I wanted it to be something that was given to her with a purpose.
Got you.
When I thought about biblical characters who had abilities that were supernatural, that were given to them with a purpose for God's glory.
Yes.
It's not something she did on her own. Because that's like us. If we can be great speakers or we can be great writers or we can be great singers that, that comes from practice, but the gift itself doesn't really come from us. It's for God's glory so that we can't take the credit for ourselves. And so that's really what I wanted that gift to be. And then I thought about writers like Frank Peretti and Ted Decker, who have also written similar kind of supernatural speculative stories. And I thought, well, maybe I can write this story with faith.
Right. So and it's interesting that you went about it that way because not everyone knows about them.
Yeah.
And when you do find them, you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Hello.
Wait a minute. Exactly. And but I think it took I liked what you did. It gave a fresh take on something that I know we all talk about dreams. We do. We all talk about, I had a dream about fish. Oh, that means somebody's pregnant. Silly things like that. But and I know I'm being silly about it, We do. And then, or we'll say, so did what happened in the dream? Can you remember it? Did you
Mm-hmm.
talk to the people? Like you talk about that. And you had some of those aspects in the book. And that's where I thought it was believable. It's just like, but then you paired her ability with tacos. And I
Yeah.
kept saying that man's name wrong. I kept on saying tacos, and my business director said, Allenia, it is not tacos.
I like
It's,
tacos.
it's not tacos. I said tacos.
Yeah.
Tacos. I kept having to say the L.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you created like Nadine, because something that you put on Instagram, you said, are you more like this or that? And I wrote Nadine.
She's so bad.
She's so bad. But I felt so sorry for Nadine.
Yeah.
I did. I
She was
did.
deceived.
Yes. So what made you have that twist with Nadine?
Well, that was one of those things where it all kind of came together at the end. And I was
Okay.
like, oh, he needed some kind of assistance from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was one of those people who was deceived. Like she thought that he felt something for her.
Mm-hmm.
And she misunderstood, not really misunderstood because he was intentional about
Right.
it, but she was being used.
Yes.
And I myself have been used. And I have done things out of, being deceived.
Right.
So I know what that feels like. And I know how slippery that slope can be when you think that there's a relationship but it's unequal and you're being used. And so that's kind of, I felt bad for her.
Yeah.
She had let herself get to a point though, where she was just so full of anger and rage that she just was going to do things that were not okay. But I liked that she didn't have any particular ability. She didn't have some kind of superpower. And that's the truth, is you don't have to be a villain. You don't have to be a super villain or have some terrible ability to hurt people.
Right.
We hurt people all the time with our words and our actions and our thoughts.
Yes.
That are so much more dangerous than having some kind of supernatural ability. So she really was just a regular person who was sort of counter to like Charlotte, who was good.
Yes.
And so she was kind of that balance. I like to have, it's very good versus evil. And so there's these two supernatural good versus evil. And then there's also just the layman's.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of her purpose.
And you did a good job with that, because the way that I was seeing it, it's just like life. It's what you choose to do. You could have placed yourself in a bad situation, but once you realize this ain't right, like Charlotte, let me help and make it better.
Right.
Or you could be like Nadine and be like, oh well,
I hate all of
you. Oh well, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
He's going to take me with him.
All about me.
Yeah. Yep, all about me. He's going to take me with him, and we're going to rule this world. We're going to take your power, and we're going to go, and he's going to be with me.
Yeah.
And he wasn't thinking that. And I think it even goes beyond that, because I think we as women, we have been, if we look at some of the poor relationships with men that we have been in the past, and y'all don't sit there looking at me like, I don't know what Allenia talking about. I don't know what Carrie talking about. Yeah, you do. Yes, you do. When you was in your 20s, your 30s, and some of y'all are in your 40s and 50s dealing with foolishness and such, right? And I said, when I was looking at it, I think I did go deeper into it, because I do know, me as being a life coach, I'm trying to find something, that lesson, that
Yeah.
deeper lesson in everything that I read, where if I'm dealing with a client, I can say, look, let me tell you about these characters in this book.
Are you Nadine?
Exactly. And what I saw was that we I'll take it back as far as when we were teenagers, y'all. Y'all remember when y'all had your first crush on that boy, okay? And you just like, I love him. He's my everything. Now I'm going with him and we gonna get married. And then all of a sudden he decide he likes somebody else. You done already talked back, disrespected your parents, snuck out of your parents' home. I said, come on now, y'all. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But that's what that reminded me of, that pull that Taklos had on Nadine, is that she knew what was right. She knew what was right, but she could not at all, choose to do anything different, because she chose him.
Right.
Him, not, I like him, but that's not right.
Right.
It's just not right. And I think we found ourselves, and that's the deeper meaning that I saw, that, sometimes we allow ourselves to get drawn in to
Yeah.
what we know is not the right thing,
Yeah.
not the
It's
right
idol worship.
expectation.
We worship the person. We worship the feeling that they give us. We worship the ideal of
Yes.
that relationship, even though it's all false. None of it is true.
Yes, Carrie. You said it plain, nice and plain. And then as time went on, and these nomad parents, these parents who you would be like, what the ham sandwich? Let me tell you something. I just died laughing. What made you make them nomads?
Well, they didn't start out that way. And
Okay.
Almost a decade ago, when I first started, I had a really great conversation with my best friend. Her name is April, and she's very thoughtful. And so she said, you should make Andy come from these parents where she was sort of free. She was like a wild child. She didn't have upbringing, really. There were no rules.
Right.
She didn't go to school. So she had no social security card. She didn't have an identification. They were just kind of traveling around, and they were good people. They're nice. They did good things, but there was no grounding. And so I really wanted that to be part of her story, that that it sounds good.
Yes.
It sounds good to say, do what makes you happy. But the problem with that is that what makes you happy often comes at the expense of someone else.
Oh, yes.
And that our lives are not like God. People say, oh, God wants you to be happy. God wants you to be holy. Can I say that?
Right.
Like, God wants He wants to change your heart so that the things that will truly make you happy will manifest in your life. And so the things that we think make us happy, like horse parties.
Right. My daughter.
Are
Selena,
not.
I know you listening to this.
Like, and like, how true is that the things that we think are going to make us so happy often end up being like, oh, this is not what I thought it was. And God is like, look, I know you.
Right.
Let me give you the thing that will give you joy, not happiness. Happiness is circumstantial. Joy is what it keeps you comforted when everything else is wrong. And everything feels so bad, but you can be content. And that's where that verse comes from. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. It's not talking about, hey, I can go write a bestseller, or I can do this. He's talking about being content in all circumstances through the power of God's love and grace. And so I don't even remember what the question was.
No, and you answered it. Girl, we are talking here. I told you.
So I don't
You go on. No, let me tell you something. My mother and everybody else gonna be like, this was a good conversation. She was saying some stuff. You keep going, Carrie. I mean, you allow God to give you those words and you tell it to us. I'm telling you, because you're saying true things.
Mm-hmm.
You
And
know,
they're hard to hear sometimes.
yes.
They're not exactly in line with the world and what the world tells us about happiness and about what our lives should look like and what success looks like.
Yes. And you just said it, what success looks like, because someone asked me, I have a coach, and she asked me, what does success look like to you? And I said, I'm going to be perfectly honest, joy.
Mm-hmm.
Joy. If I don't have joy in what I do, I'm not successful.
Yeah.
I don't care if I wash my husband's uniforms on Wednesdays. When I wash them on Thursdays and Fridays, I feel all discombobulated. That's not joy. Now, I'm not saying washing clothes is joy, y'all. Okay, don't get it twisted. But making sure my husband has what he needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That gives me joy. And having clean uniforms and doing it on the day that I know I have that time and I don't feel pulled gives me joy. And I feel like I'm successful. It sounds silly, y'all. I know y'all probably say, Lee over there running empires and she happy about washing clothes. Yeah, I'll wash my husband's clothes. But it's just an example of what Carrie is saying. And when you said that, I was just like, no, she's right. She's so, oh, girl, you was saying some stuff. I was over here having church. I was.
Tambourine.
That's right. Because and that's the thing. I think a lot of people, and there's so much, y'all, I'm telling you, there is so much in this book. It's so much. And the journey she goes because I think we all go through talking, kind of general to God.
Right.
At first, we do that generalization. Lord, just let me go ahead. Like, come on, y'all. We're going to keep it real. When we was all out there, Lord, just let me get my cycle and I will never do this ever again. Come on, we're going to keep that real. Okay. Mm-hmm. Or, okay, Lord, I done told that lie to my mother and my father. And if they know, don't find out, Lord. I mean, things like that.
Yeah. I promise I'll never do it again if you just get me out of this mess.
Yep. Just get me out of this one thing. And then you do it again.
Yes.
You do it again. You do something else. Yes. Carrie, you saying it. So the question that I have is with that, okay, because that's the thing. Andy was going through this, okay, and she was finding out things. When she met her grandmother, girl, talk about it. Talk about it. Because I was like, what the ham sandwich, Will? I'm like, did you just say? Because he went into that protective mode. But what made you write that in?
The grandmother scene?
Yes.
Well, that was hard because I wanted to be very clear about the gospel. I wanted somebody who was a non-believer who had never heard the gospel before to read this and hear the gospel. But I didn't want it to be cheesy.
Okay.
I didn't want it to be forced. And I didn't want to use a lot of church words that I would know because I grew up in church. But someone who didn't, those words may not mean anything to them or they may not understand them. So I wanted to give the gospel and do a good job of it to an audience that had never heard it before. And Andy had never heard it. She didn't she'd heard little bits and pieces. I mean, she was American, so obviously she's heard about church and stuff, but she just she'd never had an encounter with God. And she had all these notions like, but I've done all these things.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I? Like, why would God choose me?
Right.
And I've done too much. I can't be forgiven. And she
Mhm.
didn't understand how her parents, who were unbelievers, could still be used by God. And I
Right.
love that Esther says, God doesn't need us
Mm.
to do his will. He's
Ah.
sovereign.
Woo.
And
Oh,
he is going to do what he's going to do. And if
yes.
you say no thanks, then he already knew you would. He's
Right.
going to go choose somebody else, and you're going to miss out on the blessing of being a part of it. But just because her parents were unbelievers
Right.
didn't mean that they didn't have a part in her story.
Right.
And I just love that Esther is just so patient and she's so kind. It's hard to write because she's so wise and I am so not.
That's your other alter ego, okay?
Yeah. The other half.
That's the other half. That's okay. We all have it. I'm built in quarters, okay?
Yeah, like that's why she gets like one chapter. That's all the wisdom I have.
That's okay. That's okay. But I loved, but it still was, it was enough for me to ask about it.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, that right there was power. That was power packed. That's like sitting down with, you did that thing. Because when I used to sit with my grandmother, now my grandmother would do everything in a nursery rhyme, and she never said it, that nursery rhyme right.
No.
However, you got the point.
Yeah.
And like you said, you wanted to keep it simple
Mm-hmm.
so that a non-believer, when reading this, would get an understanding of it. And I thought you did a very good job of it, because girlfriend, I was just like, she did that thing. I was
Thank
just
you.
like, you did that thing. It was plain, it was clear, it wasn't forced,
Mm-hmm.
but it was the truth.
Yeah.
And I think, and that's where I'm going next, because that power that really built up in Andy to go to that last battle. Oh, good Lord. I was just like,
That was tough.
whoo. To get her to that point,
Mm-hmm.
she had to rise up.
Yeah.
Whew. And have you felt like, did you put anything of your past in that last scene to give it such power packed with a punch in the face, in the throat, in the head kind of fight? Like, girlfriend with, like, what you gonna do now?
Yeah.
What? Y'all, I mean, Andy had much attitude, but did you put anything of you, like your growth, your strength, into that last bit of how she was talking and how she was moving and how she was dealing with things?
Yes. So I've talked a little bit about how the length that it took me to write this story.
Mm-hmm.
And about 3 years ago, my husband and I were both school teachers. We lived in a beautiful house. We were happy with our situation. Everything was fine. We had 2 cars. We had a retirement plan. We had all these things that would seem successful.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day, my husband, who was like, I'll never leave Texas. I'll never do this. I'll never do this. I'll never do this. He comes and he says, I don't think I'm supposed to teach anymore. And I was like, say what now? And I was like, I was teaching. It was a really tough year. It was so tough. We had 4 kids. I was teaching at first grade, and it was just, there was a lot. And it was so tough. And like, I was drowning. And I was like, this is the worst. And so he says, I think I'm not supposed to teach anymore. And so, this was like September, like right after school started.
Right. Oh my
So
goodness.
from September to June, we finished out the school year. We started praying and preparing and just felt like God was calling us to sell our house and to go.
Wow.
Like Abraham. so that's what we did. We had these friends and we thought we were going to move with these friends and we were going to do this thing. We had this whole plan,
Mm-hmm.
a place where we were going to go. So we started looking for property, and property after property fell through. Long story short, we took a break, not because we were mad at each other or anything, but it had been emotional. And they were like, we're going to go visit family over here. And we were going to go visit family over here when we were going to come back together.
Right.
Well, in that separation, they ended up in Idaho. And they were like, we feel like God is calling us here to Idaho. And will you come? And I was like, no.
Oh my goodness.
And so we were so sure we knew what God was saying. We were so sure.
Right.
We told everybody, we're so arrogant. We're going to do this and we're going to do this and we're going to do this. And God was like, oh, that's cute.
I like that one. Oh, that's cute.
That's cute. No, you're not doing that. And so we were here. We were homeless. We had sold our house. Well, we hadn't sold our house, but it was on the market and it was empty. We had bought a camper. We were like prepared to live in this camper, but it was just this crazy thing. And so it came to a point where my parents were also moving up here and they were going to occupy the house that we were occupying. So,
oh my goodness,
going to happen. And within a period of maybe a month, God he was like, moved things around. They purchased a house. And we ended up next door to them. And he was so clear. And it came after the point where my husband and I had said, okay, I'm at the end of myself. I have nothing. I'm going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I have nothing. And the power that we had came through surrender. Because you finally, I'm getting like so emotional.
That's okay. You go ahead, girl. That's big. Oh my goodness. Because I'm over here going, I got chills. I'm telling you, chills.
Because he already knows. He's already been there and he already has a plan. And when you can surrender yourself and let him work through you and let him work it out in your life, then it turns out so much better because, we just lost. And after that is when this book came together, because until that point, it was not coming together. It was like clashing and it wouldn't make sense. And it's because I had to come to the point where I surrendered like she did. And that's where the power came from, because none of that came from her. She was a vessel. And it was God's power. And so I knew how to write that because I had felt that. Not in the same situation, obviously, but I knew what it felt like. To be at the end of yourself and to say, I can't do this anymore. I can't. There's nothing left.
Right.
So, yes.
No, oh, goodness. Oh, y'all. I told y'all this was going to be good. See, y'all be thinking Allenia's extra. But I told y'all, these authors are coming on here. They are not playing games. They are writing good books that are going to, I'm telling you, make you think, entertain you. Take you there. I'm telling you,
cry.
Make you cry. This is action. And that question, who knew that question was going to give us what we got? So you gotta read the book. I'm telling y'all, faith, mercy, grace. Oh my goodness. And now I'm gonna go ahead and add surrender on it. That's it. Carrie, oh my gracious, I could continue this. You do know that. I can continue this. Where I want to give Carrie an opportunity, and y'all don't act up. Please don't act up and go and get a pen and just sit and listen to Carrie and sit there and say, that was some kind of good on a Saturday morning before I get my day started going to the molder shop with my mask on or something. I said, so, Carrie, let everyone know where they can find, and y'all, she gonna tell y'all something. Because this right here says book 1. Okay. She gonna tell y'all something in a minute. Okay. Carrie, go ahead. I'm gonna be quiet.
All right. So you can find Dreamwalker on Amazon and also on my website, carriecotten.com. And you can also find book 2, Dark of Night, on Amazon. It is published and it might be better than the first one. I am so in love with it, and it has a lot more will. So,
oh, girl,
that should sell you on it. Yeah, and you can follow me on Instagram at author Carrie Cotten, and you can follow me on Facebook at author Carrie Cotten. And if you want to friend me on my personal page, that's fun too, because I post tons of farm pictures and crazy stuff about my life. So
wonderful. Wonderful, Carrie. I want to say thank you. Thank you so much. This was so good. I really did. I enjoyed this. And y'all, let me tell you something. She made a trailer for this book. I even had to send her a message and say that trailer was fire. Okay. It had me like, oh, I can't wait to get the book. I mean, it was so good. It was good. And just to see the funny things that her and her friends do on Instagram, I just enjoy it. It makes me smile. I'm telling you, the connections that we're making on Instagram, and a lot of people are just like, wow, how do you know them? I'm like, you it's not that you know them, but you're watching them give a part of themselves. And that part, you know, I enjoy. And I want you, I want to say, keep it up. I'm enjoying everything that y'all do, because some of the things that you're talking about in regards to writers and ideas coming in the shower. Okay. I'm brushing my teeth, y'all. And she's right. You're brushing your teeth, and then you're like, oh, and then you right. Yeah. Give me a pen. Give me something. Y'all, I had so many notes on a napkin. My husband was like, love, do you need a notepad?
I do.
Yeah, exactly. It's just that you get those, God gives it to you when you're actually at your most, I think, when you're at your most still.
Yeah.
And when you're at your most still is when those good ideas come about. So I have learned to keep a journal on the side of my bed. I can have a journal downstairs and a journal upstairs, that if an idea comes to me, I'm able to write. So that's how I am getting to book 2 for myself as well. So I understand. Look, I am with you on that.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, y'all. I hope, ladies, that y'all have enjoyed this conversation with Carrie Cotten today. I am hoping that as she continues to write, because y'all, I'm getting book 2 that's going on vacation with me. Okay. Make sure that if you wherever you pick up her book, once you read it, please make sure you leave a review. Allenia has a lot of reviews to do. Please leave that review. That helps the author out. I want to be able to say one day, you know what? That best-selling author was on my podcast, okay? And when you do write your review, please let her know that you came from the Joy Nook Book Club. Let her know that, so that she knows, okay? Again, Carrie, thank you. Ladies, thank you for joining us. Remember, self-care is the best care. And I just want to read this one thing before we go. I mean, I had 2 sections, but I got so excited. I wanted to give her time to read and to talk. And y'all, I can't help it, okay? But I wanted to just read this little bit. And this is towards the end of the book. I want you to be mine, he said, answering my question. I knew that was a lie, but he had deceived himself so much he thought it to be true. I steadied myself, resolved to follow it through, no matter the cost. I can't do this, Lord. And the Lord says, you can. That right there gave me chills, y'all. Even in the toughest moments, who are you going to lean on? Who are you going to lean on? Your faith, mercy, and grace. The Lord gave it to us. We have it. Use it, y'all, to get you through those tough times when you feel you can't. Change that mindset, change that thought. Because remember, by changing your thought will change your feelings. By changing your feelings will change your behavior. It's a win, win, win for you. Okay? So you can do it. Whatever it is that you're going through, you can do this. Ladies, have a beautiful Saturday. Remember, sustainable habits inspire mindful transformation to help you get your shift right. Peace and blessings, ladies.